I used to think that family was a safety net, not a trap door. But that illusion shattered the night my daughter stopped breathing and I realized I was standing completely alone. My name is Lauren. I'm a single mother, a pediatric nurse, and until recently, the forgotten child of a family that only had eyes for my golden boy younger brother, Jared. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. Growing up, I was the background noise to Jared's spotlight. He was the miracle child, the athletic one, the charming one, the boy who could do no wrong. My mother would beam whenever he entered a room, as if the sun had personally walked through the door. Me? I was always too serious, too dramatic, or my mother's favorite, just a phase we never expected to last. When I earned a scholarship for nursing, they barely noticed. When Jared won a high school science fair with a volcano kit, they threw him a backyard party with streamers, cake, and a banner that read, "Our future doctor." Ironically, I'm the one who actually became a medical professional. I didn't care much about the favoritism anymore. I had my daughter, Riley. She was born premature, so tiny she could fit in my palm, and she fought for every breath. Riley made me believe that strength wasn't loud. It was quiet and relentless. She was my entire world, and despite the lack of support from my family, I kept our little two-person universe spinning with late-night shifts, missed meals, and savings drained down to pennies just to keep her healthy. Then, one evening, I got a call from Riley's daycare. She had collapsed. I don't remember driving there. I only remember running through the front doors barefoot because I had left my shoes in the car, screaming her name as if I could summon her back with the sound. The ambulance beat me to the hospital. The doctor said it was a rare neurological inflammation, fast and aggressive. She needed emergency surgery, and I needed strength. So I did what any daughter still holding on to hope would do. I called my parents. I explained everything, choking on tears. My mother's response? "That's so sad, Lauren, but your brother's birthday dinner is tonight, and we already made the reservations. Can it wait?" "Wait?" I repeated, stunned. "Mom, she could die." "Well," she sighed, "I'm sure the doctors will do their best. We'll pray, but don't guilt us for showing up for Jared. It's his special day." Then she hung up. That night, as I paced the hospital floor with vending machine coffee in my hand and a signed consent form in my lap, my family posted photos from a luxury restaurant. Jared in a custom blazer, champagne flutes raised, a cake with sparklers lit behind him. My mother's caption read, "Celebrating our pride and joy. Blessed family, our golden boy." And my daughter lay in a coma. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet, cold, and final. In that sterile hospital corridor, I made a decision. Something inside me cracked and then hardened. My parents had always made it clear where I stood in their world. Now, I'd make it clear where they stood in mine. What they didn't know, what they never cared enough to learn, was that I had power too. Not the kind they celebrated in Jared. Mine was quieter, but sharper. Because over the years, I hadn't just been working long shifts, I had also been investing, building, and signing papers. And when my grandmother passed the previous year, leaving behind a sizable inheritance, I didn't squander it. I grew it. She had left her fortune to me, not my parents, not Jared, because I was the one who cared for her in her last years while they vacationed in Aruba. And that fortune? It came with leverage. I didn't cry that night, not after the surgery. Not when Riley finally opened her eyes and whispered, "Mommy." I cried later, but not from pain, from resolve. The next day, I opened my laptop and made a quiet call to my lawyer. My parents' house? Technically in my grandmother's name before she passed. The trust? Tied to a joint account they didn't realize I now controlled. Their car? Also registered through a clause in the trust's umbrella. The locks were about to change. And not just on their front door. In the weeks following Riley's surgery, something shifted inside me. I wasn't the same woman pacing a hospital hallway begging for scraps of love from people who had never once shown up for me. I was done begging. My focus turned razor sharp. Not just on my daughter's recovery, but on the slow, precise unraveling of the illusion my parents had wrapped themselves in for decades. The first thing I did was remove them from the trust's access. Quietly, no drama, no warning. The trust had been paying their property taxes, utilities, even the monthly fees on the luxury SUV my father liked to brag about. They didn't know those payments were made from the inheritance account my grandmother left in my name, under the condition I would take care of them if they ever needed help. They had never earned that help. Not when they abandoned me at my wedding, not when they laughed about not attending Riley's birth, and certainly not when they chose a steak dinner and Instagram selfies over my daughter's life. Next, I contacted the family lawyer and instructed him to transfer the house deed, my grandmother's old estate, into my LLC's name. I'd legally structured it years ago for tax purposes. Now it served another, ownership, their house, my asset. Still, I didn't touch it yet. That part needed timing. Instead, I focused on becoming invisible to them while watching their foundation slowly crack. My mother began calling a few weeks later, confused that their electricity bill had bounced. "It must be a mistake," she said over voicemail. "Can you check with the bank, Lauren?" "Your father's very upset." I didn't return the call. Then came the overdue car payments. My father left me 3 voicemails, each angrier than the last. "Your brother needs the car for work. Don't let your bitterness poison the whole family." I saved them for later. As I watched Riley gain strength day by day, her hands regaining grip, her speech returning, I felt something deeper than pride. I felt purpose. I wasn't just healing my daughter. I was rebuilding a life where no one would ever have the power to treat her like a second-class citizen, the way my parents had treated me. One afternoon, while Riley was coloring beside me, I pulled out a faded photo album. It was full of Jared's trophies, parties, beach trips, my mother's careful captions beneath each one. "Our brilliant boy." The heart of the family. There were barely 2 pages of me, 1 birthday cake photo and a grainy image of me in a school play. No caption, no date. I closed the album and tucked it into a box. I didn't need their history anymore. I was making my own. The final phase of my plan began when I learned Jared was planning to launch his new startup, a flashy tech idea he'd been bragging about online for months. What he didn't know was that the angel investor his proposal had landed? That was me. Through another shell account, I'd anonymously funded his launch, demanded a majority stake, and given approval rights over every executive decision. My lawyer was a genius. Jared never looked close enough to see the name behind the dotted line. He was too busy posing for PR shots with Mom and Dad at his side, captioning them, "Built on Love and Loyalty." I attended the company's first investor dinner in a sleek black dress, heels that made me taller than I remembered being, and a calm smile I had perfected for this moment. My parents were seated at the VIP table, laughing, sipping wine, completely unaware. When Jared stood to introduce our silent but visionary majority partner, the room turned toward the doorway as I stepped in. My mother's wine glass froze mid-air. My father's jaw dropped. Jared blinked, confused, then stunned. I simply walked to the stage, took the mic, and said, "Funny how silence can still have power, even when it's the kind of silence you were raised to ignore." The audience clapped politely. Jared stammered something. My parents didn't move. Later that night, I left an envelope in their car. Inside was a letter, handwritten. "You didn't come when I needed you, so I came when you least expected me. You once told me I was too serious. Turns out, seriousness built everything you're standing on now. Enjoy the lights, the show's not over." I also included a bank statement. 0 balance, account closed. They would get the official foreclosure notice on the house next month. Jared's company, now under my legal control, was being absorbed by a firm that didn't keep family members on the payroll out of sentiment. It wasn't revenge in the loud fireworks sense. It was surgical, quiet, precise, and permanent. Riley and I drove home that night with the windows down, her favorite music playing. She didn't know everything, but she looked up at me and said, "You're smiling different, Mommy." I was, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible, and neither was she. 2 months passed. Jared's startup crumbled quietly, like a sandcastle washed by a wave no one saw coming. My lawyers didn't make noise. We didn't issue statements. We just took control, restructured, and sold the most valuable patents to a firm Jared had once called a bunch of nobodies. His team received their termination emails on a Monday morning. By Tuesday, my name was the only executive listed on the internal site. But I hadn't done it for the company. I did it for the silence that followed. No more bragging posts, no more champagne celebrations, just stillness on their end, and a growing curiosity in the community. That same week, my parents were served the foreclosure notice on the home they'd paraded in for decades. It wasn't dramatic. A man in a blue vest knocked, handed them the documents, and left. They still had 30 days to leave. I had made sure the legal timeline would protect their pride as much as the law allowed. Even now, I wasn't cruel, just done. But the true justice came a week later when my daughter Riley, now nearly fully recovered, was invited to a youth art competition downtown. She had painted a stunning, wild swirl of color and light she called Things I Feel When I'm Brave. The local mayor was attending. It was a big deal. I invited my parents. One last time. They showed up late, of course. My mother wore her pearls, still believing her presence alone meant something. My father trailed behind, quieter than I'd ever seen him. They had no clue what was coming. After Riley's painting won second prize, I stepped up to the podium to thank the guests. The mayor, who knew me well now, since I'd been anonymously funding several of the city's recovery programs, nodded for me to speak. I looked out into the crowd, found my parents sitting stiff in the second row, and said, "I want to thank the people who taught me everything, about silence, about survival, about what love should never look like. I used to think you had to earn love, prove your worth. But some of us were born worthy. We just had to remember it. This painting," I gestured toward Riley's framed piece, "is the proof that bravery can be inherited. Not through blood, but through choice. My daughter fought for her life, and I chose her. Every moment. Even when others chose birthday cakes and party balloons instead." There was a pause, a silence that wasn't awkward. It was powerful. My mother's jaw tightened, my father's face had gone pale. And then the mayor took the mic and added casually, "We're also excited to announce a new fund for pediatric healing arts therapy across the state, named after the woman who made it possible. The Riley Grace Foundation, funded entirely by Lauren Matthews." Applause. Gasps. Tears from strangers. I turned back to my daughter, kneeling beside her as she looked up in awe. "Did I do good, Mommy?" she whispered. I kissed her forehead. "You did perfect, baby." My parents didn't approach me that night. They didn't say a word. But as they left the hall, I noticed them passing a news reporter snapping pictures near the door. The headline would be up by morning. It would talk about the mother who built an empire while holding her daughter's hand through the storm. It would mention the silent benefactor who had funded dozens of recovery programs anonymously. It would say nothing about the parents who didn't show up because they hadn't mattered in the end. A week later, my father called me. I let it ring. Then my mother emailed. Subject line, "Please talk." I forwarded the email to my assistant. Then I closed my laptop and joined Riley outside. She was riding the adaptive bike I had built for her, the sunlight catching her curls like a halo. She was laughing, and I realized that was the only sound I ever needed. They had missed the most important celebration of my life. Not a wedding, not an award, not a company launch. But this, the moment I rose without them. And never looked back. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.